Well, hello, welcome to Watchbox. This is Watches Tonight, and I'm Tim Mosso. I'm here in the studio with Sean, and this evening we talk about dive watches we can hopefully afford. We chat live, and I share your viewer wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. Guys, remember the people who pay for these pixels, it's kind of like a GoFundMe for the show. Check out thewatchbox.com where we have over 3,000 pre-owned late model as well as vintage watches live right now. Check them out, updated several times per day. Just keep hitting refresh. Open the window and keep it open. All right, join me on Instagram, guys. Somewhat less salesy, a little bit more, I'd say, laid back window into my world where I take the best pieces off of our website, including some that are not actually listed on our website, and I showcase them along with a few glimpses of the life of Tim Mosso. That is Tim_Mosso on Instagram. Welcome to our viewers. Soma R, you are first in the box alongside Edward Ledden. Ron H joining from Oz. We got Paolo M from Philadelphia, a local boy. Appreciate that. Jim Millett, Gail Mibson, we got Joe Pinto from Louisville, Stephen E. from Detroit, Michigan, Keystar G60, Miroslav joining in, Outlaw, Richard Combs from South Florida. Richard, you're in the show tonight. Thomas Burnett, Jem Hader from Belgium, staying up late with us, and Biohazer likewise staying up into the evening from Dublin. J-Dub, I appreciate you staying up with me in the UK. All right, jumping real quick into tonight's regularly scheduled program. Wrist shots, I love them, you love them. Check them out. Jeffrey D gets the ball rolling with his Rolex Submariner, rolling in his Toyota FJ Cruiser Trail Teams. The Trail Teams many consider to be the ultimate of the FJ Cruisers, and look at that, he matched green on green. We got Wilson S captures a Valentine's Day moment with a his and hers shot, coincidentally at exactly 10:10. He tells me this was not staged. We have Christopher H of Germany, dressed for the occasion and prepping for the opera with his Lange und Sonne Lange 1. Richard C of South Florida, I promised, now here he is, scans the beach with his AP Royal Oak Jumbo 50th Anniversary Edition. And Rick R usually joins from the Midwest, but here he's also in South Florida with his Carrie Voudelaine and Vaunt Wheat in Platinum. Guys, send them to me. Wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your wrist on my list. Now, tonight, guys, dive watches for $10,000 or less. This is a pretty big deal since watches seem to be getting ever more expensive. Tonight, I want to take a step back and prove you can still get a ton of value for less than the price of a nice used car. And I should also mention that dive watches are kind of the industry standard. It wasn't that way. Traditionally, a man would wear a dress watch, maybe an all-arounder, but today, they're no longer the equivalent of rebreathers, wetsuits, or flippers, because these aren't for recreational submariners alone anymore. A different kind of submariner, the Rolex kind, back in the 80s turned dive watches into an all-around, all-the-time accessory. And more than that, the universal acceptance of Rolex's most famous watch turned dive watches into the most popular class of luxury watches. In general, when people go out looking for a luxury watch, something very much like a sub is what they have in mind. But Rolex has been like the market, and its relentless march to higher price points means that only one current Submariner in the catalog, available new, without a date, still retails for under $10,000. Today we're putting a cap on our outlay to prove that limitless satisfaction remains possible for less than the price of that used Fiat 500. So first, let's take a look at the state of Rolex's original diver, which barely makes our list. Okay, the Submariner was redesigned for 2020. Long coming, it was the first all-new sub since the model bowed in its prior generation in 2008. But unlike the last time we had a new sub, we had to wait 4 years for the no date. This time, we got both the no date and the Submariner date at the same time in the same model tranche. So for $9,100, you get a 5-year warranty, you get a now 41mm watch that, as I measure it, is no larger than 0.7 of a millimeter in any dimension. It gets a new 70-hour power reserve, Rolex caliber 3235. No big changes, but the power reserve goes from 48 to 70, which seems to be crystallizing as the industry standard across the board for all watches. You get glide lock, still 20 millimeters of adjustment in 2mm increments, 10 steps. Use it all the way out over a dive suit or fine-tune the size in the field. And this is a watch established in 1953, initially as part of the boom in recreational diving. Today, it's actually pretty difficult to find new in a dealer, even though it seems to me like the no date is scarcer than the date model. It doesn't seem to be in quite as much demand, but we're not seeing these things new in dealers' cases. There's very much a wait list, and MSRP here is largely an illusion, because if you look at the market, these things are all over the map, but generally above $12,000. So if you're going to pay, you're going to pay a premium, and it actually pulls this Submariner outside of our price range for tonight's show. $12,000 is not $10,000, and $10,000 is already too high for this evening's watches. We can talk about the advantages here. Yes, if you can wait and you get the watch new, it instantly gains several $1,000s in value compared to what you pay. Unlike a lot of dive watches, which seem to be getting ever thicker as they get ever larger, this one is holding the line at about 12.6 millimeters thick. It's actually quite slender for a dive watch, still fits underneath the cuff. It's not as big as the bigger case designation suggests. It is not 1 millimeter larger than the old Sub. In fact, lug to lug and thickness are exactly the same. And if you measure end link to end link, it's only 0.7 of a millimeter larger. The Rolex movement is far more accurate than the COSC chronometer certification it bears. Rolex says plus or minus 2 seconds a day, but in fact they usually run a little bit better than that. And although it's not explicitly advertised as an anti-magnetic watch, these things are resistant to thousands of Gauss of magnetic flux density, because frankly, with the anti-magnetic escapement, balance scaff, and hairspring they now have, they are multiples more magnetically resistant than the original 1950s Milgauss models. Lots to love. Instantly recognizable. Everyone knows what a Sub is, which is why, for better or worse, it's also the most copied watch design in the history of the world, and frankly, it can be as good as cash. So if you've ever got to bail and get out of town, this is a great way to get some green in your pocket. That said, most of us are probably looking at these as keepers, and on that front, it has absolute immunity to planned obsolescence. Some watches are redesigned every generation to look nothing like the prior generation, whereas if you had bought one of those original 1950s Subs, you'd probably recognize this as the descendant of your watch. Disadvantages: wait lists, markups, and the Rolex stigma, which is a real thing. Not everyone wants the Rolex image, and not everyone wants the intrusive attention that comes with it. Questions about how much money you make, whether it's real, and the very real possibility that someone might take note and case your wrist in real time. It has been known to become a little bit of a target for souvenir hunters of the black market kind. So there are advantages and disadvantages to this watch, but it's all largely moot unless you get it new, because otherwise you will be paying more than our $10,000 limit for this watch. 24 Degrees saying, I own a Submariner date. It looks good in a t-shirt and jeans. I love that. We have Wally T saying, Planet Ocean 60 ATM, 10,000, a stunning watch, open case back plus chrono. Jim Millett agreeing with Edward. Let's see what Edward said, if I can find it. That discussion goes back quite a bit. We got Eric R. from Southern Utah, by the way, and we got Mike D. waking up early in New Zealand. Mark S., longtime supporter, good to see him in the box. Omega and the Artist, JLC and GS from my exit watch for a while. Okay, guys, always good to see your opinions on these things. We got Michael G. joining in from Glasgow, Scotland, and we've got Omega and the Artist from Kirkland, Washington on the left coast. We got Sean Hansen, and we got Thomas Burnett saying, Omega Planet Ocean, Panerai Luminor, Rodiomir 1940, Doxa Sub 300, GOCQ, all great divers under 10K, and I'm not going to contradict you on any of those counts. I will say this though, with Planet Oceans, be ready, because they're really thick and they wear large. But jumping back to our regularly scheduled program, we can take a look at a sub $10,000 submersible watch from the Rolex family, and of course I speak of the Tudor Pelagos. The Pelagos is a lovely watch that is less overtly vintage inflected than the nostalgic Black Bay. Although launched in 2012, the current models really started arriving in 2015 with the in-house Tudor Kinesi movements, which brought them technically on par or even slightly ahead of Rolex movements at the time. Unlike the Black Bay, this one isn't totally geared to vintage fan service, so though it does have the snowflake dial, the rest of the watch is very modern and forward-looking, and that includes its capabilities. It dives deeper, it's got a helium escape valve, it's made of titanium, and its dive clasp is one of the best in the business. Its bezel, unlike the Black Bay, is also fully loomed. Now you have variants, which means there are choices. There's the FXD for the Marine Nationale, one of the few modern mechanical watches actually built for and delivered to a military contract specification. You've got the LHD, that's my favorite, Pelagos. You've got that lovely nostalgic date, lefty alignment to the crown, and plenty of luminescence. And of course, all of these bracelet-clad Pelagos models also come with an accessory rubber strap. 39 millimeters, you better believe it. This one's a no date, maybe a little bit more nostalgic and vintage, but it's definitely not a Black Bay, and no one's going to confuse the two. Advantages, obviously, titanium. Here it's grade 2, so it's nice and light, it's hypoallergenic. If you don't like nickel-intensive steel alloys like Rolex 904, this is the ticket. The clasp quality, 3 different ways to set the extensible range of your Tudor Pelagos clasp, which means not only is it a high-grade piece, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. The loom beats a Sub by a mile. You can see that the full bezel is loomed, almost like a Blancpain 50 fathoms, and every diver should do this. The second hand is also loomed. I don't know why they don't all do it, but Tudor is doing the right thing by its customers. You get that extra strap when you buy it on the bracelet, which is nice because you can accessorize. And then there's the FXD military link, which I think is so cool. Because if you ask me, what was the last time a military unit requested a mechanical watch? I'd say maybe some Zinn contracts, or the 1990s to early 2000s Zenith Rainbow flybacks, but that's pretty much it. Mechanical watches made for federal service, for national service, those are articles of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, so that is just super cool. Prices are all below $5,000. That includes full bracelet titanium, a good value by any measure, and Tudor warranties are now 5 years to match Rolex. Disadvantages, well, they do feel larger than 42 millimeters. I've worn the Pelagos, and I do feel that when you add the thickness of the in-house calibers, the original model was thinner, but when you add the in-house caliber thickness, it feels more like a 43 or a 44, even if it's light and titanium. There's also the shared movement. The Kinesi caliber is now appearing across a range of watches. You'll find them in other brands from Chanel to Breitling, and that's going to continue because Kinesi is a joint venture that also makes watch movements under contract. So for the first few years, these movements were exclusive to Tudor, but no more. Low resale value. You can see used, these do lose quite a bit of value. This is not like Rolex where it holds its value or even gains a bit. If you want to get in and get out, there will be a price to be paid. Okay, that is the world of Rolex divers. I could have talked about the Black Bay, but I like the Pelagos more. And frankly, we've heard enough about the Black Bay on Watch YouTube. Let's jump back into our box. Karate Chop, Blancpain, under 10,000, 100% pre-owned. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about how you can get a new one for under 10 grand. And yes, we are talking 50 fathoms. We have Felipe A, greetings from Portugal. Thank you for staying up late. And we got Sebastian joining in from Vienna. I appreciate that. We got BK, good morning from Hong Kong. Just picked up an RD Le Monégasque after watching your review, Tim. Love the watch. The Dubuis Le Monégasque is one of the coolest lines in recent years. And in fact, it's one of the few that pays any homage to their original watches from the 90s. In this case, the Sympathie, which we all love. What else is going on? Jem Hader saying Longines Ultrachron, and Joseph Zamora is joining us. Caliber YQG saying he is a Pelagos fan over the Black Bay. And we've got Yahia B joining in from Egypt, staying up late with us. I love it. Welcome, guys. Okay, we got Mitch Mitchell, Ira Wolf, and Kent D. Thank you guys for joining me this evening. So jumping into the wrist shots, Ryan G of Hong Kong. He's a good friend of the show. He's getting up early with us, sharing his Blancpain 50 Fathoms Trilogy GMT. Thank you for trusting our company and for joining our event out in Hong Kong last month. Thomas B. and his IWC Pilot's Watch Chronograph 41 visit London Fashion Week looking the part. Wakar is back with a very green BMW and a matching G-Shock before a game of cricket. And Mosso R posts a rival G-Shock MTG before rolling with his Mardi Gras crew. plastic beads, a staple of Mardi Gras here in the U.S. Abdullah reports from a trip to Cairo with his vintage Rolex Datejust with, I believe, engine-turned bezel right there. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your watch on this box. All right, we got Edward, we've got Rooted, we've got Vishal joining in. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Stevie GMT. And welcome, Bezijunk O. Hope I got that right. Okay. More dive watches under $10,000. So, it's impossible to talk about Rolex without mentioning its eternal rival from Bien, Omega. Rolex makes movements in Bien. Omega is both based and manufacturing out of the city. Until the quartz crisis hit in the mid-1970s, Omega routinely had the upper hand over Rolex. Omega sold more watches, had more distributors and points of sale, and competed at every price point from the entry level to the high end. Omega was driving the car. That said, today Rolex drives the bus. It is a bigger vehicle at a higher price point. With Rolex in the driver's seat, Omega plays the stalking horse hunting from behind. And Omega, again, boasts something Rolex does not. In the modern era, Omega has a lot more divers for under $10,000. The Seamaster diver 300-meter black ceramic is unlike anything Rolex or Tudor offer. At 43.5 millimeters in black ceramic, this 2019 Basel World debut is beefier than the smaller black base ceramic and cleaner than the 42 millimeter Pelagos. $8,400 buys you a watch for which Rolex has no direct equivalent in either of its model families, and the closest comparison, if you had to find a watch in the market that is like this, I would say probably the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Diver in ceramic. It's also got a ceramic case, diving capability, an upscale movement, and a full rubber strap to match. The diver packs a scratch-resistant ceramic case, which I love because I'm so done with scratches, swirls, and dents. It's garnished with titanium caseback, bezel, and crowns, and all of this, along with the sapphire caseback and crystal, makes it a very lightweight watch in spite of its size. Advantages include the toughness of ceramic. Again, I hate scratches. It's 300 meters water resistant with a helium escape valve. Remember, you've got to step up to a Rolex Sea Dweller to get that in the Rolex catalog. The METAS certification is meaningful and goes far beyond the COSC. And even Tudor has begun certifying watches master chronometer, all of which is to say this Omega was way out in front. The display case back, though not artisanal, is attractive. I'm glad I can see this movement. The equivalent Tudor MT5400 or MT5600 movements have a solid case back for a reason. We've only just begun to see them on sapphire casebacks that Tudor is launching now, and frankly, the Tudor movements are ugly. The Omega is attractive. We've got a matching CE buckle, which is very cool. A lot of ceramic watches use a black-coated titanium or black-coated steel buckle because making tiny and durable ceramic buckles, including the pin, is not something smaller brands do well. But the might of Swatch Group and its materials science means that this watch has a buckle to match the case. So when that buckle is scratching along your desk, it's not getting marred. Advantage Omega. I would also mention that the movement is basically amagnetic. When you're over 15,000 Gauss, you're at a point where the watch is basically immune to any kind of magnet you would ever encounter in real life, even if you do work at a particle accelerator. And the cool escapement tech, heck, look, the coax might not be any more efficient or accurate than Rolex's Chronergy, but it's a hell of a lot more interesting. And with the George Daniels and Roger Smith history, it's also more alluring in the artisanal sense. Disadvantages, well, dates are useful and this watch doesn't have one. There is no 8900 series movement here, which means you don't get the 60-hour twin barrel movement. This is 55 hours. It doesn't have the independent jumping hour hand, so the time zone jumper that the 8900 has. The case is large and not for everyone at almost 44 millimeters in diameter. And the 55-hour power reserve here is now on the short side for the industry. Plus, if you like bracelets, not available. So, guys, jumping into the box. Adam Crossfire saying buy elsewhere on planet Earth. I'm not sure what the alternative was. I always miss these antecedent comments. We have Planet Earth saying Watchbox is charging too much. Well, here's the thing. We offer two things. One, a discount on watches that aren't hugely popular. We sell them with a 2-year warranty, a 7-day right of return, even if the only reason is you just don't like it, and often a discount over MSRP on most models we sell. If it's something like a Journe, a De Bethune, an MB&F, a Voutilanen, a Rolex, a special Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet, then we probably will choose to charge over list because that's the market price, but what we give you is the opportunity to pick it up immediately with no wait at the dealer. So you could pay $12,000 for your Submariner and get it now, or you could pay $9,100 for your Submariner and pick it up in 18 months. That is the nature of the secondary market. We charge the market price, no more, no less. A lot of times for used watches, it's going to be a lot less than new. But for some special pieces, what we're offering you is something that money can rarely buy, which is time, if you want a very hot watch and you want it immediately. Or you want an approval watch and you don't want to jump through hoops with Patek Philippe, FP Journe, or others. Okay, jumping back into the box, Abdul saying I would take the Blanc Pain among the options available, and we will have one later in the show. We have Abdul saying the ceramic is cool, but carbon fiber is more durable for falls, and this is true. It also does a good job of hiding scratches. We got GMT Master in the box and John Claude Beaver. Guys, welcome. It is good to see you. Okay, the Seamaster parade continues with the Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter James Bond edition. This was a 2019 launch that was supposed to coincide with the release of No Time to Die, but, you know, COVID intervened. So a common issue at the time, several major Omega launches were postponed because they had a whole Tokyo 2020 Olympic collection ready to go at the same time. But it was worth the wait. Well, the watch was. I don't know about the movie. But this is a combination of the current Diver 300 meter generation, but with a no-date dial, tons of agreeable Fotina, a fully loomed bezel rather than just the bezel pearl, a titanium bracelet with mesh and straight bars, and a 1960s British Ministry of Defense MOD-inspired caseback. A couple of those elements are germane to Ministry of Defense issued watches in the 50s and 60s. Some of them, such as 007 and 62, the year Dr. No debuted on screen, are references to the lore of James Bond. Well, advantages. Okay. The 8800 inside is very reliable, as we just saw on the last watch, and it is very accurate, usually to within about a second game a day, sometimes even less. This is a watch that has an awesome bracelet, probably made by Stybe, which is a German company that specializes in mesh bracelets for many luxury brands. It has an above-average boxed set for an Omega. The box is distinctive. It comes with accessory NATO straps. It's got a really nice watch roll that can store the tools, the straps, and the watch itself for transportation. It's got a lovely and unusual, highly domed sapphire that looks like a vintage plexi right down to the distortion, and it has a wonderful look that is aged well. Fotina doesn't always age well. Now, almost 4 years on from the release of this James Bond 007 edition, the watch looks just as good. Disadvantages. The bracelet price premium is insane by Omega standards. Omega usually charges a few $100s, sometimes as few as $300, $400, $500 to upgrade from a strap to a bracelet. Here, the premium is $1,100, and I can't help but wonder if that isn't because they buy the bracelet from a contractor like Stybe rather than making it inside the Swatch Group. We're still under $10,000 though, as the retail on the bracelet is $9,500. And remember, you will get a bunch of accessories plus a cool roll for your watch and all of its bits. Here you can see the box, beautifully varnished, opens with a key. There's a watch roll, there's a NATO strap. You get all of that plus tools when you buy this special edition. Okay, guys, consider those options from Omega. There will be one more at the end, a very special one alongside the Blanc Pen. Viewer wrist shots number 3. Mike D displays a lovely Habring Doppelfelix on the MB&F RoboDog watch stand. You guys are full of surprises. Stuart and his Zenith Dayfi A3691 Revival visit Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. Looking good, Stuart. Wakare from Louisiana, he's back with BMW and Omega Seamaster Aquaterra World Timer, an undersubscribed Aquaterra. We've got Mikhail B of Poland, a longtime supporter of the show, enjoying an airport snack before flying with his JLC Master Geographic. And Kyle A and wife capture a his and hers moment, actually at a hockey game. All right. I don't know if the Cartier is ideal for that kind of hard contact, but you got the sports watch on the left just in case. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels, or as I like to say, your analog on my digital. Okay, let's talk about smaller brands that offer great value. The Eterna Kontiki, named after Thor Heyerdahl's vessel in his landmark 1947 transatlantic trip. It's available in several different iterations. Pardon me, it was not transatlantic, it was trans-Pacific, I believe. It's available in several iterations, including a bronze model that looks for all the world like a baby Panerai Bronzo. So the 44mm Kontiki is sized like a sea dweller, but priced like a Black Bay at approximately $3,360 US dollars. Now, you can see that the watch is nicely detailed. There are things going on here that you wouldn't expect on, quote, a cheap watch. You've got applique indices on the dial, which has a wonderful soft granular texture. You've got a ceramic insert on the bezel. You've got a lovely set of bevels and detail finishing flourishes. I particularly like, if you look at the bottom, that the lug bevels really wrap around the tips. There's a lot going on here that catches you on second, third, and fourth glance. This is a beautifully made watch. An Eterna manufacturer automatic caliber, 3902A, provides robust timekeeping and a 65-hour power reserve. The ceramic capped bezel includes an unusual decompression scale, like an old Doxa Sub, for diving safety on the ascent. We have those large applied indices, a rough grained green base. If you look here, you can really see the texture much better. And a no-date layout that keep the Kontiki diver legible and clean. Now, I should mention that this model line was launched in 1958, so it's been around almost as long as we've had dive watches. And Eterna itself is a small but self-sufficient Grenchen-based manufacturer that actually spawned the monster Swatch Group movement specialist ETA in 1932. ETA was spun off as a division of Eterna. And that's why they're both in Grenchen to this day. But ETA was a spin-off from Eterna. It was a division of Eterna. So Eterna is the prior manufacturer. And the advantages of this Kontiki, aside from its interesting backstory, its attractive finish and details, and its manufacture movement, well, you've got a lovely tale to tell, both that of the original Kontiki vessel and of the model line dating back almost as long as Omega and Breitling have been making dive watches. You've got the manufacturer caliber, which is of a high grade. It's a non-chrono version of their caliber 39 chronograph. It's also priced nicely at $3,360, which means you're actually undercutting Tudor by better than $1,000. You're well into Oris money right here, even a little bit below in some cases. Disadvantages? Well, a 2-year warranty feels sub-luxury today, even at this price point, and 44mm is too large for many. Expect low resale value due to low name recognition, and no date on the bronze model is going to irk some who like to have a date. I'm definitely one of them. Guys, this is a great alternative to the likes of Tudor, Longines, Tissot, Tag Heuer. This is a really fascinating watch. You've got a great manufacturer behind it that's supported by a much bigger and richer group that supports it. They also own Corum, among others. So this is a wonderful option if you don't want to spend $4 grand or more on your diver. Here's one that's a little bit closer to home and a personal favorite of mine, the RGM Model 300 diver. Originally launched in 2008, RGM's Model 300 is their dive watch. RGM means Roland G. Murphy, an American Wostep-educated watchmaker who operates out of the old watchmaking heartland of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, right here in the state where I'm broadcasting. The watch has been through at this point about 3 different series at least. The beefy American-made RGM 300 really looks the part of a baby Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and I have to say it's a little bit uncanny. At 43.5mm and 17mm thick, this is no Submariner. Only large wrists need apply. That said, large wrists will be impressed by what they find. While the parts are mostly sourced from Switzerland and Germany, the design, assembly, regulation, and customization, if you elect, is performed in Lancaster, and American-made dive watches are rare. So each Model 300 comes with all of the following: a 5mm thick sapphire crystal, which is great for diving, but also helps to prevent shattering when you're on the surface. You have an anti-magnetic soft iron inner shield to protect your watch, and I can vouch for the value of that because the magnets in this laptop have magnetized my watch many times. It has a ceramic capped dive bezel, which is still something of a flourish and an unexpected refinement on divers under $5,000. It is water resistant to 750 meters, which is more than twice the standard in the dive watch segment, and it is one of the only instances I've seen of a captive bezel design being used on a watch that is not a Zinn or a Breitling. Screws on the side of the bezel mean captive bezel. It allows for the bezel to be very precisely adjusted so it clicks exactly the right amount and aligns with the index, but it also prevents the bezel from getting snapped off by impact, something I can't say of a snap-on bezel like on a Tag, Omega, or Rolex. So this thing is built like an absolute tank. It has the latest Sellita SW300 in a high grade, and they do adjust it in-house. The latest SW300 has a 56-hour power reserve, so a bit more than you're expecting. You can get custom scrimshaw-like engraving on the reverse of the watch, and I would absolutely do that. And an optional RGM mother-of-pearl dial can be fitted with black Tahitian mother of pearl, as you see right here. By the way, I love that bracelet. Or you can get bright colored mother of pearl for a very different, more summery look. Note that all of the indices on the dial, even the MOP, are applique. You can get dials that are matte gloss and metallic solid dial colors if you prefer. Straps and bracelets can be obtained. You can get both with the watch. It looks and feels indestructible, and I speak from experience here. Ask a friend, put it in his hand, and he'll probably guess over $10,000 price because it looks and feels that robust and that premium, especially with the bracelet and the custom dials. Prices are reasonable, very reasonable, $3,700 to get the standard watch with the standard dial on a strap. It's going to be $4,450 on the bracelet, which still awesome price. Add $200 for the mother of pearl, which I think is very fair given the volumes. Engraving costs more, but it won't break the bank, and you're still nowhere near $10,000. All of these can be considered the advantages of the watch. Disadvantages include the huge size, and it is really huge. Roland, send me a test watch on a bracelet or a strap if you want to prove me wrong, but I do think these watches are going to wear too large for an average-sized wrist. And I would also say that unlike a lot of the other RGM models, the 300 sources a lot of high-quality parts from Europe, not the United States. So while this is designed and assembled and regulated in the US, we're not talking like one of the Pennsylvania Tourbillon or 801 caliber watches here. This is largely a product of établissage. Now, this is probably the coolest watch in the show. So if you're thinking, definitely give RGM a call and talk to them about a Model 300 diver. If you got the wrist, put it on your list. All right, jumping back into the box, what are you guys saying right now? Let me jump and see if I can catch up with your comments. I've got Perpetual Time LTD saying fantastic content, and I really appreciate that comment. Thank you so much, fantastic. Let's see what else is going on. John Doe saying Ball Engineer Hydrocarbon Deep Quest. If you're looking for a great ball diver, the Engineer Hydrocarbon Original at 40 millimeters for me is their most feature dense and wearable. We've got Von Krul saying that is a hunk of sapphire at 5 millimeters thick. And then we've got Brendan saying nothing compares to the Rolex Submariner 16610. Nothing. Except perhaps the no date. And then right here we have Jason Chen. Hi Tim, what would you consider the Royal Oak a dive watch? Only the Royal Oak Offshore Diver. There is a definition of a dive watch. It's the 1996 ISO 6425. That defines a dive watch. If a watch meets that definition, it's a diver. If not, it's merely a sports watch, even if it's highly water resistant. JS saying, first time I've caught you live. I appreciate you tuning in, Jay. And then right here we've got Josh Lee saying, good morning from Malaysia. Always good to see Tim, our man. Thank you so much for getting up early with me from Malaysia. And then we got Full Metal Luke saying, shout out. And I really appreciate that so much. This chat box moving so hard. He's saying shout out to Jason Main, one of our sales associates here at Watchbox and one of our lifers from the Watch You Want era. He's down in Boca today if you want to meet him at the Florida boutiques. All right, jumping back into our regularly scheduled program. Guys, Oris, here it comes, probably owns the sub $10,000 dive watch market and the sub $5,000 dive watch market below that. The 2020 release of Caliber 400 placed Oris on a price to value pedestal that nobody, Tudor included, has approached in the years since. The Oris Aquis 41.5mm is the undisputed market leader in this segment. Consider that $3,500 buys you all of the following refinements: a full bracelet with quick releases and an accessory strap, an exclusive Oris automatic Caliber 400 with 5 days of power reserve, accurate to +5, -3 per day. That's better than a chronometer. It's anti-magnetic up to 2,250 Gauss, highly shock tolerant. It has a 10-year warranty with 10-year service intervals. 10 years. The bezel is ceramic capped. You can get wild color combinations if you want them, and dial quality is superb with fume fades, metallic graining, and applique indices. Perhaps most impressive, Oris has not raised the price since 2020. Disadvantages? Well, the proprietary lug system does limit your strap options. If you're seeking a status symbol, this is not it. And if you're Tudor, this Oris makes your life a bit harder and you're wondering how it's all possible for under $4,000. And frankly, so am I. Oris ruling the roost below $4,000. Wrist shots number 4. I asked, you answered. Dave T. of Colorado dreams of hitting the road this spring with his Sealander 39 and his Porsche 987 Cayman. We got Adam H. of Pewaukee, Wisconsin, which is near Milwaukee, sharing his unusual EPOS 3440 Big Moon. Jimmy Y. fishes in Tampa, Florida, awaiting baseball spring training with his Panerai PAM 1074. Nice shot. Ben D. and baby daughter appreciate his Seiko Legrand Sport. And Mike F. takes us home with the Tim Mosso edition Dan Reuter DR02 number 16 in his Audi A7. We don't talk much about that one. It's a little bit of a secret inside the industry, but there is one of them, and I'm giving a shout out to one of my boys. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your wrist on my list. Now, 2 for the road. Even in this market, discounts are possible if you pick your brand, model, and moment correctly. Although these two don't fit on or below our $10,000 price cap as priced MSRP, I'll be disappointed in any of my regular viewers who can't find a way to negotiate a sub $10,000 pre-tax price for either of these mild outliers, starting with the Blancpain 50 Fathoms Bathyscaphe 38mm. This beautifully wearable size came out in 2017. It's $10,000 on, well, it's $10,100. And it launched in 17 at 38mm in steel with a unidirectional ceramic capped bezel, 300-meter depth rating, and beautifully thin. At only 10.8mm, it is one of the thinnest true divers available anywhere. Caliber 1150 has 100 hours of power reserve. The rotor's been removed so you can see the finish. It is an automatic. It is beautifully detailed in a way no Rolex movement is. It has a silicone hairspring for magnetic resistance. And if you lose your nerve at the dealer and can't negotiate that sub 10K price, these are available for under $10,000 all day long in the $8,000 to $9,000 range on Chrono 24. Now, Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean, black ceramic, 39.5mm. Between its weight, size, and scratch resistance, this might be the best Planet Ocean of them all, and it's the one I recommend to everyone. It's mechanically the same as the Diver 300-meter, but it has the higher water resistance rating of the Planet Ocean and the superior bezel knurling, making it easier to grip. And this is Swatch Group we're talking about, so I expect you'll find an angle to chip away at the $10,600 retail price until you get what you want. Guys, thank you. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to everyone who has made this show possible. I want to continue doing it, and your views make that possible. Visit me on Instagram, Tim_Mosso, to watch my 1-minute review series, all video. Let me know in the comments below what type of video topics you would like to see on future editions of the show. Time out, Tim out. Thanks to my live chat box, and thanks to you for logging on.